just a few minutes since we met Lucky the reporter, who had stumbled upon an illegal meeting of the county commissioners at that local cafe. But actually 6 months have passed and a lot has happened. Lucky wrote his story about the deal to pave the road to the commissioner's brother-in-law's place, revealed that the chairman's father is the secret owner of the proposed nuclear power plant by the wildlife sanctuary, and of course made a big deal out of the illegal meeting at the cafe. The commissioners were each required to pay a $500 civil penalty for knowingly participating in an illegal meeting, and are barely on speaking terms with the prosecutor, who referred the complaint to the Attorney General. Lucky received the prestigious Golden Gotcha Award from the State News Editors Association and the cold shoulder from just about everyone at the county. Recently, Lucky has noticed that Sid Sational over at the TV station seems to be breaking a lot of news about the county. No longer a rookie reporter, but armed with the wisdom of 6 months on the job, Lucky senses that this is not a coincidence. Playing a hunch, he makes a public records request for copies of any records, including emails, mentioning the Daily Splash, or directing county employees as to how to respond to the meeting. As it turns out, Lucky is still lucky. The commissioners, not so much, as the chairman is about to learn from the county prosecutor.
Well, looks like you guys are in for it this time, Craig. The county clerk has gone through the emails to employees, and she's found 15 from you or one of the other commissioners telling department heads that any county employee quoted in the Daily Splash on any subject is going to get fired. Heck, you and Ed each sent one out the other day threatening to fire anybody who had a copy of the Daily Splash on county property. I've got to tell you, that statement you put out apologizing for the coffee shop meeting and voicing your utmost respect for the public's right to know what the county is doing is going to look pretty hollow when Lucky gets a hold of these emails.
What do you mean when he gets a hold of them? He's never going to see them. Emails aren't public records, they're just messages. Like if I called someone on the phone.
Sorry, Craig. The Idaho State Supreme Court says otherwise. Emails are public records, and they are treated like any other records. They're public unless they're covered by an exemption.
Well, come on, these are exempt. They're personnel records. You as much as said so yourself. Those emails are telling employees they'll get fired if they talk on the scandal sheet. If that isn't a personnel record, I don't know what is.
That one's not going to fly either, Craig. In the same case, the Supreme Court said personnel records are only the types of records you typically find in a personnel file, like a letter of recommendation. Your emails are telling county employees how they should respond to a certain constituent. That seems more like administration of the public's business than a personnel decision to me. I'd have a hard time keeping a straight face if I had to argue that these emails are personnel records.
Well, can we at least take out the parts where we call that nosy little twerp a nosy little twerp? Yeah, they get their hands on that one.
Give me a minute to think and look up the statute. Maybe there's an exemption for personal insults. Nope. Don't see one. Looks like he gets the nosy little twerp comment along with, "This is such a lousy newspaper, I wouldn't use it to housebreak my dog" comment Ed threw in. My advice is you get those out there now.
Well done. There are a couple of legal points we wanted to note. First of all, emails are treated like any other record. They are public unless there is a specific exemption. Second, calling a record a personnel record doesn't make it one. The Supreme Court reminded us of that all exemptions are narrowly construed. If you wouldn't expect to find a record in an employee's personnel file, it's probably not a personnel record. People who ask for records get the whole record unless there is a specific exemption to withhold certain information, such as the Social Security number. Now, there are 3 practical points that I think are important. First of all, listen to your mother. If you don't have anything nice to say about someone, don't say it at all. Second, listen to your father. How could you be so stupid to put something like that in writing? And listen to Mark Twain, who said, "Don't argue with a man who buys ink by the barrel." Betsy.
I work for the man who buys ink by the barrel. We're ready for our next scene. Act 2, Scene 2 is entitled Mind Your Business. And in this scene, we will meet Ernest, the rookie reporter, and Ernest will be portrayed by Carrie Schwendeman, Executive Assistant for the Latah Soil and Water Conservation District. And the other character is Undertrained, an overly cautious clerk, who will be portrayed by Lee Rosen, Managing Editor of the Moscow Pullman Daily News. In this scene, we meet Ernest, a rookie reporter, and Undertrained, an overly cautious clerk. Ernest has received a tip that the county road superintendent's property has been assessed at 30% less than a smaller property right next door. It's a heck of a story if it's true. But Ernest is a bit shy and doesn't want to look nosy. She's also afraid that if she reveals why she wants the assessment, she won't get the document she needs. Undertrained also thinks Ernest is being nosy, and he's afraid that if he makes a mistake, he'll get fired.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good. You?
Oh, I'm fine, I guess. Yeah. I was just wondering if, maybe you could get some, I don't know, records. I'd like to get a copy of, the county road superintendent's, what do you call it? Oh yeah, assessment, and maybe his tax bill too. Do you think I could get those things?
That's personal. Oh, I can't do that. No, I might get fired. No,
I was, I kind of checking out a rumor, and I was told that these are public records.
Well, why would a pretty little lady like you want to look at someone else's tax return?
Time out, roughing the constituent, 15-yard penalty. All right, well done. First, a public record is a public record. It's none of the government's business whether Ernest wanted to use that paper to wallpaper her bedroom, or print it in the newspaper, or use it to challenge her own tax bill. It doesn't make any difference. In fact, Undertrained violated the public records law by asking why our reporter wanted these records. The statute specifically says that the custodian of a public record shall make no inquiry of any person who applies for a public record, except to, 1, verify the identity of a person in accordance with a section of Idaho Code that allows you to see records about yourself, or 2, to verify that the record will not be used for purposes of a telephone or mailing list. And you might ask why, and the answer is because the statute says so. Or 3, to prevent disclosure of certain personal information collected for driver's licenses, such as social security numbers. Or 4, as otherwise provided by law. However, the person seeking the record may be required to make a written request and to provide his or her name, a mailing address, and telephone number. Second, if Undertrained gives Ernest the records that have been asked for, then he's following the law and cannot be fired for that. Now, I want to draw a distinction between the records that were asked for in this skit. They were property tax records, which are public records. But if I go to the State Tax Commission counter and I say, I want to see my income tax records, and my name's Butch Alford, I hope that they ask me for my driver's license and say, but you're not Butch Alford and you can't have his tax records. Because those tax records, income tax records, are not subject to public disclosure. And in fact, it's a felony crime for the tax commission employees or agents to disclose those unless it's in accordance with law. So, there are records that are not subject to that disclosure. I wanted to draw the distinction between the records we've been asking for here, which are property tax records. There are many other public records that seem a bit personal, but they are public records, and citizens get to see them. Examples would be monthly bills, itemizing use of a government credit card, contracts with employees and with suppliers and service providers, names of employees, lists of persons' arrears on their tax bills, agency check registers, and the like. If you're spending public money or managing public agencies, the public has the right to see what's going on. Now, I wanted to tell you a little story. Okay, it's a little longer than a little story, but it isn't too long. A number of years ago, I was Brian Kane, and I wanted to, actually I hired him to be me, but I used to do what he does. That's the point. And one of the things that happened is that when legislators would call me, I would deal with their issues. And I received a telephone call from Senator Atwell Perry. Some of you may remember him. Very fine gentleman. I attended his funeral not too long ago. He was the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee and co-chairman of JFAC, which is, I guess everyone would acknowledge, the most powerful committee in the legislature. It's the committee that deals with all the money. So when Senator Atwell Perry called you, you responded. And I said, "What do you need, Senator?" And he said, "I need you to come to my office. I have a constituent here, has a public records question." Great. I raced up the stairs to the JFAC offices, huffing and puffing into Senator Perry's office, and I saw his constituent. Now I recognized this person. This person was one of those individuals who had made numerous public records requests. You know the kind of person I'm talking about. Got no problem. The Public Records Act is, some people would say, well, he's just fishing. Well, this guy was a fisherman. But the Public Records Act is a license to fish. We understand that, right? It is a license to fish. So I figured he was doing some fishing. But that's not what happened. I was quite surprised. Because this individual actually was the elected commissioner of a gopher district. How many of you know what a gopher district is? I got one hand. I got two hands. Now you've exceeded my expectations because I never get more than one hand. I'll explain to you what a gopher district is.
Gopher districts?
Gopher districts. We have gopher districts.
Burrowing rodents.
Yeah, it is. They're burrowing rodent, and not so much up here, but in the southern part of the state, a gopher will burrow into a side of a canal, and the water will go out through that. It will actually blow out canals. They're very destructive. And so when I was a kid, we used to go catch gophers. We didn't really catch them. We killed them, okay? And then we would cut off their tails, and we would take the tails to the gopher district, and we'd get a nickel per tail, okay? So that's a gopher district. Well, he was the commissioner of the gopher district. And so here then became the problem.
What?
He had a farmer that lived next to his farm. And this farmer wanted to get a copy of the budget for the gopher district. Now this gopher district was massive, $5,000 annual budget. And that's a lot of dang gophers. And so he knew that his neighbor was just going to cause a problem, and he was going to put it in the paper, and he was going to make a big stink, and he was not going to give up the budget to this gopher district. So I explained, look, it's a public document, it's a public record, it's subject to disclosure, you're required. Well, I'm just not going to do it. Well, you're the government now. You're not the private citizen. You're the government, and your obligation under the law is to give up this document. You have to give him a copy of the budget. No, he refused absolutely to give up the super secret budget to the gopher district. Okay, so I left, and he was absolutely adamant. And several days later, to conclude the story, I will tell you, he finally surrendered those documents subject to such secrecy of the Gopher District. But they were public documents subject to disclosure.
And with that, we're ready for Act 2, Scene 3, which is entitled Know Your Business. And I would like to invite up the actors who are portraying Bluster the Citizen, and that would be Stephanie Calais, City Clerk of the City of Moscow, and Helpful, the Deputy City Clerk, who will be played by Holly Bowen, Latah education reporter for the Moscow Pullman Daily News. In this scene, we meet Bluster the Citizen and Helpful, the Deputy City Clerk. They don't meet each other because Bluster is phoning in her request, or should I say, her demand.
Good morning, City Clerk's office. How may I help you?
It's about time somebody answered the phone. Listen, I want a copy of every letter from the city council to the police chief this year. I know that good-for-nothing chief is covering up for his cousin, and I'll be danged if my tax money's going to pay for that. I want copies of every letter, and I want them today.
I'll sure do what I can to get them for you. There are probably quite a few letters, and I'm going to need some time to go through the city council's correspondence file. I'll do my best, but I'm not sure I can get them today.
Listen up. I know the law, and I know you have to give me what I want. You city people are all in cahoots, but you're not going to push me around. I'm going to expose that crook, and I'm going to take it to the newspaper. If I have to take you to court, I'll do that too. I'm going to get those letters, and I'm going to get them today.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to give you the idea that I wasn't going to help. It's just that there are so many letters to go through. What letter are you looking for?
You can't ask that.
Oh dear, I'm afraid I'm not communicating very well. You're correct that I'm not supposed to ask questions about your request, but I could probably find what you want very quickly if I had an idea which letter you need.
Oh, I understand now. You really are trying to help. It just seems like the city's always trying to hide the truth and hide behind the law. I'm sorry if I came on a little strong. Maybe we ought to start over. I'm looking for the letter from Councilman Smith that asked the chief about a fight in my neighborhood near Maple and 12th Streets last September.
I think I remember seeing that letter. I should be able to find it in about 15 minutes. Would you like to pick it up, or would you like me to email it to you?
I'm going to be downtown for lunch. Would it be okay if I stop by your office about 1:15?
You bet. By the way, there's a follow-up report from the police chief in the council's packet for Wednesday's meeting. I could get you a copy of that too, if you'd like.
That would be great. Thanks again. You've been really helpful. I'll see you after lunch.
Well done. That there's been huge advancements in technology since Monday night when we were in Sandpoint. The telephones were bananas. So, you were improved quite a bit. Great advances here in Moscow. But a couple of points. First of all, if it's in writing and it doesn't concern litigation or personnel matters, it's usually available. And writing is not limited to paper. The law covers all writings, including tapes, photographs, electronic data, and email. But asking a clerk to gather more than you need is a waste of time and taxpayers' money. In this case, by asking why a document was sought, the clerk saved everyone time. In fact, the legislature amended the law this year to allow the agency to provide information which may help the requester narrow their request. As it turned out, the follow-up report demonstrated that there had not been a cover-up. So in this case, a little sunshine quelled the rumors, which are nearly always worse than the truth.
And now we're going to have Brian fill in some gaps and give you a little more information about the Public Records Act.
I gotta make a quick transition here. A lot of neat stuff.